Okay, Councilor Lindell, you are good to go.
Thank you very much, Joe. Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting of the Public Works and Utilities Committee, September 7th, 2021 to order. Could we have a roll call, Ms. Diaz?
Councilor Garcia,
Present.
Councilor Abeta,
Here.
Councilor Mcclure,
Here.
and Madam Chair Lindell.
I'm here. Thank you. Do we have any changes from staff on the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we do have a change to the agenda. Item 7A would like to be removed from this agenda, and it'll come back to the committee on September 27th at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Anything else from staff? Okay. On to the consent agenda. Are there items
Madam
that?
Chair,
Yes.
I'll move for approval of the agenda itself.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Whoever roll call, please.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a question before we approve the agenda. There are two items on the agenda under consent that haven't been scheduled and apparently aren't going to Finance Committee. And I was wondering if I should pull those off the agenda, or if maybe one of the directors wants to discuss that, or where would this be logical to discuss?
You know, Counselor, I don't really know the answer to that. I don't know which items they are, so I'm not sure what the issue is.
Okay, well then I'll
wanna
wait till we go to consent. Thank
Okay, maybe you can just pull them and then we can have a discussion about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. So moving on to the consent agenda. Is there any items that any counselors would like to pull? So Counselor Vihil-Coppler.
Madam Chair, don't we need to vote on approving the agenda?
I thought we just did.
No, I interrupted to ask my questions before we voted.
Oh, okay. Can we have a roll call, Ms. Diaz?
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Abeta,
Yes.
Councilor Vihil-Coppler,
Yes,
and Madam Chair Madam Chair Lindell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, now we can move on to the consent agenda. I'm just dying to get there. Counselor Vihil-Coppler.
okay, then I will pull item F, G, H, oh yeah, G, H, and K.
Okay. Counselor Garcia, do you have any items to pull?
Not today, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Beta.
No, thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Move to approve as amended.
Thank you. How about a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Abeta,
Yes.
Councilor Vihil-Coppler,
Yes,
and Madam Chair Lindell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. So now on to the approval of the minutes from August 23rd, 2021, from the Public Works and Utilities Committee.
move to approve.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a roll call, please.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Abeta,
Yes.
Councilor Vihil-Coppler,
Yes,
and Madam Chair Lindell.
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
passes.
Okay, so now we have a presentation from Mr. Roach having to do with the monthly water supply and demand update. Good afternoon, Mr. Roach.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for your time. I wanted to briefly give an update on supply and demand. This came at the request of the mayor to governing body, and we thought that it would be best to bring this through Public Works and Public Utilities first on its way. So this material was emailed to you. It's also available on our website, and I'm actually gonna, if I can, share my screen here and show how to get there for folks who are following along on YouTube. Ms. Diaz, can you enable me to share my screen?
I'm working on it. Give me just a second.
Thank you.
I don't have, it doesn't like give me an option to let you share screen.
Okay, then I will proceed. I will tell folks listening on the webinar that if you go to santafenm.gov/water, you will see on the very sort of landing page, it says what's new with water. And one of the things that it says there is water supply updates. And so I'm going to be reporting from a presentation that's available there under the link August 2021 supply and demand update.
Jesse, I think I figured it out if you want to try now again.
Got it. Yep, you did. Thank you. So just for the benefit, and do you see the Santa Fe Water webpage now, everyone? Okay, very good. So if you click on this top August 21 supply and demand update, it will open a PDF. And I will go ahead and speak to, so there's essentially 4 figures in here, and there are 4 pages of bullets that describe each of those figures. I'm going to advance to the second page here and talk about our production last month. We produced 306 million gallons of potable water in August, and 72% of that came from surface water sources or our rivers. Muddy water events on the Rio Grande caused reductions in production at Buckman Direct Diversion around the 5th and the 17th of the month. And 96% of our total production was delivered through meters. So only 4% unaccounted water loss, which is a small number. And so the gray line here shows the water that was actually sold through meters on a daily basis. And then the colored lines show the production at Canyon Road, which is a small amount, and a large amount at BDD through the month, with the exception of when muddy water on the Rio Grande had us go to wells. Then on slide number 4, we see that through August of this year, so this shows cumulative production from the beginning of 2021 through August. We've produced 6,000 acre feet of drinking water, and 73% of that production has come from river water, 27% from wells. And the dotted line shows 2020 production, so we can see that through August, we're a little bit below demand from last year. We are utilizing the wells about twice as much as we were last year. So last year at this time, we had pumped about 800 acre feet of water, and we're at about 1,600 acre feet of groundwater through August. Okay, moving on to the figures shown on slide 6. Let's see. So the chart on the left shows in blue, this is our total reservoir storage in the Santa Fe River reservoirs, Nichols and Mcclure, in 2021. as compared to that storage in 2019 is yellow and 2020 is orange. And we can see we basically didn't store any inflow this year. And then we rested Canyon Road, and so we were pretty flat. But in the second half of July, we saw good flows into the reservoirs. And so that brought us back up to a point where we're storing, at this point in the year, a similar amount of water that we had in storage the previous 2 years, although we took a much different path to get there. And then on the right side, we see total San Juan Chama storage. So this is the sum of our storage, essentially in Heron and Abiquiu reservoirs. And we see 2021 again in blue, and the past 2 years in the yellow and the orange. And we can see that we're lower than the other years, although I will say that this 8,847 is a little misleading. We have 4,000 acre feet that was temporarily loaned to irrigators that is coming back in the next day or two. So we'll be in this 12 to 13,000 range again, but you can see that that's low compared to the last 2 years. And then finally, this final graph shows inflows to Mcclure. So this is Santa Fe River inflows to Mcclure, which is our upper reservoir. And the shading shows what we've seen at that gauge over the last 20 years. And so the interesting point to point out here is that the orange line is what we have seen in 2021, and we were tracking a fairly dry year. So this darkest shading represents about half of the years. And so we were tracking at about drier than 3 of 4 years on average. And then when we hit July, we went from, the driest 25% of years to suddenly the largest flows that we've ever seen at that gauge in the last 20 years for the second half of July. So that's just a testament to the strength of the monsoons in the Santa Fe River watershed in the second half of July. It helped us out quite a bit. And with that, I would be happy to stop sharing and stand for questions.
Okay, does anybody have questions? Councilor Garcia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jesse, for the update. Appreciate it. And I guess just a quick question for clarification. It's on a broader scale. In regards to this presentation and prior presentations, a lot of the forecasting addresses, how we're going to get our water supply from. I'm assuming it's projected that the impact of the pipeline is forecasted in those projections, correct?
Madam Chair and Councilor Garcia, I guess it depends on the projections you're asking about. When we do look out 20, 30, 40 years in this next round of planning, we will consider the benefit to us of having the pipeline in place, but we haven't really incorporated it directly into too many of the projections we've done so far.
So I guess some of the projections then, based off of the information we've been provided in the past, that we've got enough water supply into the decades, we're going off of well water supply, not utilizing the pipeline.
I apologize. You are correct. In the last presentation that I gave to governing body, I did show what we thought would happen in the immediate future once we had the pipeline in place, and it did show an expansion of our San Juan Chama water resource. So you are correct, and I stand corrected, and I apologize.
Okay, no worry. I just want to make sure I'm clear, because I would, and I don't know if this is possible, but is there a way for us to request, or for me to request, both? Let's say the pipeline, we run into challenges where there's not enough water that we were anticipating getting from the river, and we're now having to go into our aquifers, and what that forecast looks like. I mean, I would like to definitely see that, because I think what we're betting on is the pipeline, and in being able to recharge our aquifers and having water supply into the future using that kind of methodology. But then what happens in the methodology where the pipeline is not as fertile as we anticipated, and we now have to go to our wells and aquifers, and what does those projections look like? And I think that's what I necessarily haven't seen through a lot of these presentations. And I just want to make sure that we have the holistic picture in that sense. Because let's say we're not able to treat the water, our effluent system goes down, and we're not able to maintain that kind of process, then what happens? And so I just want to make sure we're covering all bases, and I don't know if that's possible to kind of get that type of update from you.
Councilor Garcia, I appreciate the question. And I think for the level of projections that we provided a month or so ago at governing body, we certainly could, those were sort of long-term averages, and we certainly could provide those in the absence of a return flow project. To sort of drill in on the detail, we could incorporate, and we will incorporate that into the current planning process that we're doing, but those results won't be available for several years. But I think it's important to point out what it would look like if we didn't have that project. And I think in the context of that last graph that showed that the San Juan Chama water levels are low, we have looked at what if the return flow project had been in place for the last 5 years. Those reservoir levels would be very high with that project in place, and instead we're creeping into lower storage than we've seen in the last 20 years.
Right, but I mean, I think I don't want to look at and dwell on the past. What if we had done? I want to dwell on the future and what are we doing and how? Because I'm what I'm trying to get at is what's Plan B? Plan B is the pipeline. This proposed pipeline doesn't work. What does the forecast for Plan B look like? And I think that's something we need to make clear to everybody. Coupled with the development that's happening currently in Santa Fe, no pipeline, added development, how does that impact the water supply? And I think that is the type of forecasting I would like to get a better handle on, because a lot of what we got is the pipeline, but this is how it's going to impact. This is how, well, great. I like that information, but again, what's the Plan B? Should it not work for some reason? I just want us to be able to have some type of contingency planning in place. So with that, I guess it was just comments. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jesse. I really appreciate the update again.
Okay, I don't see any other hands. I just have a couple of very quick questions, Mr. Roach. Why this year we've used 73% surface water and 27% wells, quite a bit more use of our wells. And the reason that we've done this is?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's mostly because of the limited availability of Santa Fe River water.
Okay. And I realize, and I agree with you, that a 4% unaccounted for, it seems really low. That's great. Except then when I multiply it out into gallons, it's still 12 million gallons. Where do we think they might go?
I would be speculating. And so I'm not an expert, and we do a pretty broad water audit to try and hone in on those losses. I would guess that they are a combination of some leaks and some meter errors. But I am not an expert on unaccounted water, but it is something that we track and we are always trying to limit.
Well, I appreciate that. And thank you very much for the presentation. It's really helpful. And I think that it's amazing and it's impressive that in those graphs, you can show right down to different days of what we're doing. I think that that's actually pretty amazing. So very good work and impressive work, because boy, that's a lot of water that you guys keep track of. And I'm really grateful to you. So thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. I think that's the only presentation. Oh, we have a presentation by the Watershed Academy. And that, Mr. Hook, are you here? Yeah, there you are.
I am here tonight.
Good. You want to go ahead?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And counselors, just to introduce myself, I'm Alan Hook with the City of Santa Fe Water. And just like to briefly introduce the Watershed Academy and its concept, which was a pilot program, job pathways program for young adults. So this program has been a partnership with the City of Santa Fe National Forest, and RiverSource. And the funding that kind of seeded this program came from River Network and Water Now Alliance. There are also some folks I would like to recognize before I transition to our presentation. So one is Rich Schrader, who's here tonight. He's Executive Director of RiverSource and his staff. So they brought the idea, the kernel of this idea, and their expertise, given that, was able to implement this job pathways sort of training for young adults here in Santa Fe. Jesse Roach, you just heard from him. He's our director. He just, really had the vision to support this, allowing my time to participate, and also committing other resources toward mentoring young adults. Sandy Herlocker, he's our Santa Fe National Forest Espanola District Ranger. He provided staff, a letter of support, 3 key staff for Dennis Carroll. He's a fuels manager. We have Micah Kiosau, he's the watershed manager for us on the Santa Fe National Forest. And then Matt Garcia was a mentor as a fuel specialist to some of the kids and looking at future jobs in the Forest Service. And then last but not least, our mayor, Mayor Weber, he provided a letter of support from the city to receive funding through River Network and Water Now Alliance. So with that, Jamie, I'd love to transition over to Rich Schrader, Executive Director of RiverSource, who will do a brief video presentation with his staff and interns.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair and City Councilors. My name is Rich Schrader. I'm the Director of RiverSource, and I'm really grateful for you providing us the opportunity to present to you. To start, I'd like to show the short video about the Watershed Academy. So I'm going to go ahead and go like this. Okay, it's about 2.5 minutes.
The internship has taught me how big of an impact humans have on water. From that, I learned how big of an impact a drought has. Also learned how to observe the biodiversity and then record it on a phone and upload it. My favorite place to be during the internship was the Upper Santa Fe Watershed, where we got to observe ride carrying areas.
In the upper watershed, we used things like picture posts to monitor the area. We also used drones to look at areas we couldn't access on foot. And we also used Survey 123 to mark down areas that needed to be looked at or that also had like invasive species.
This internship helped me further my career opportunities by learning and experiencing new skills on observing and caring for the environment. I couldn't have experienced any of this if I didn't have help from communities in schools, RiverSource, and future-focused education.
In the Northwest quadrant, we did assessments and monitored the erosion using One Rock dams and Zuni bowls, and then there's multiple others. That's just the basics.
My name is Christian Chacon, and I go to Santa Fe High School.
I'm Raylan Herrera, and I'm going to school at Robertson High School, but I have a place in Santa Fe with my dad.
My name is Jose Ramirez. I am 19 years old, and I graduated from Capitol High School.
The Watershed Academy exposes youth to career opportunities, teamwork, and financial literacy, increases job skills for improving water quality and protecting soils and forests, and engages people in work that's critical for communities facing climate change and drought.
All right, I'm going to stop the share. See if I can, there we go. All right, that gives you really a snapshot. We were able to focus in the Santa Fe Watershed Academy on creating paid work-learn experiences for youth in the fields of hydrology, restoration ecology, watershed management, and science, and protecting our water supplies. So we collaborated with the city and the U.S. Forest Service staff to identify priorities, like looking at the riparian areas in the upper watershed next to the streams to look for areas that need improvement or where problems need to be addressed. And we ended up recruiting and hiring 5 youth to provide service on these local watershed projects. The oldest intern, Jose Ramirez, who you heard from, that graduated from Capitol High, we ended up giving him a recommendation, and he's ended up starting a career in fire prevention and watershed protection. So it's neat to see that happening. And we ended up getting some important data in the upper Santa Fe watershed. We found information on the location of obstructions in the channel, non-native plants, and more. We had a fantastic group of partners in this, and it was in part because we were just one of 3 groups that got this kind of grant from River Network and Water Now. And so they resourced us, and we got a lot of good technical assistance. And I think it's really built a great foundation. And we want to build more on the momentum that we started here to continue partnering with the city and do it again next year to continue benefiting youth with job skills and a paycheck, and also providing services for the city and its residences so we can keep our water supply secure. So with that, we did have a plan. I want to make a note. I'm not sure who's facilitating, but we were hoping to get 2 interns are planning to come in, as well as Carlos Herrera. Is there any way we can get them? I think they're viewers now, but they can't participate. Is there any way to get them in?
I just let Carlos Herrera in. Who were the other 2?
The other are Christian Chacon, and might be under Susan Chacon, his mom's Zoom account, and also Raylin Herrera. But I think Carlos is up next. Carlos, it looks like we got you there. You just are. Carlos has worked at RiverSource for a long while and is from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yeah, and I think my Raylan's account sometimes goes under Ashifer. If you see an Ashifer in, then that's my daughter. And I think Christian, his computer he's using goes to his mom's account. I forget, Chacon is the last name. Yeah,
Susan Chacon.
Susan Chacon, there you go. So, and but yeah, I'm ready to present. So thank you guys for having us here to share with you guys the Watershed Academy that we've had during the summer of 2021. You know, we're dealing with some really challenging times right now in our history. Of course, the long-lasting pandemic has had major impacts on students as they're forced to stay home and to be not able to interact with their peers, their community, or even their environment. But not only the pandemic, you know, there are oftentimes socioeconomic challenges and even digital divides that are having impacts on our families. You know, I speak from the I perspective because I've seen these impacts personally. You know, we can't get our kids to put down their cell phones and visit with the family. But, you know, also, oftentimes underserved students are also struggling in STEM-related fields in school. And so what this program does is we try and meet and adapt with those students and meet them where we are. Get an understanding of the connection that they have with the natural resources and the environment, and how do they use that environment. And then we use that as a starting point for them to help them understand natural science. interns are then provided tools and the knowledge to get or what they can do to understand the health of the watershed, what tools they can use to get an understanding of the watershed. And one of the big things that we hope for is to be able to align some of the work that they're doing with these partners, but also align with potential futures for these students as they go through school, high school, and they graduate and start thinking about secondary school. We're thinking about tools that they can use in their own life to be able to provide for their families, and hopefully continue to have that drive to take care of natural resources. So it was a very exciting summer, and thank you guys very much for having us here and for supporting this program. And I'd like to pass it on to Christian Chacon. So thank you guys for having us here today.
Hello, my name is Christian Chacon. My age is 16 and I go to Santa Fe High School. During this internship, I had a lot of fun learning how to do erosion control and how to use a phone to record riparian areas. For erosion control, we were taught how to build a one rock dam, which when water flows through it, it builds up stuff that was flowing with the water, and the water comes out cleaner. We also learned how to build a mini luna, which is like a moon crescent structure. And it kind of splits water into different areas. We also learned how to use a phone to record riparian areas. We would kind of look around the environment, take water measurements, and then input it into my phone. Now I'd like to introduce another fellow intern named Raylin.
All right. Hello, I'm Raylin Herrera, and I go to Robertson High School in Las Vegas, but I have a house with my dad in Santa Fe. Over the summer, I joined a fun, interactive 2-week Watershed Academy internship. During the internship, I got to be more socially interactive and visit areas I probably couldn't if I weren't in the academy. We used technology when studying the riparian areas, such as drones. Most of the footage in the video you saw was taken by myself as well as other interns. We used the drone to view areas we couldn't see or walk to on foot. We also used phones provided to us to collect data using an application called Survey 123 and mark places on the map. By collecting riparian data, we can remember important places to return to before and after projects. It would be cool if you look into the academy and into considering it. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. Hi, Rich.
Hello, Counselor Lindell.
Thank you. It sounds, 2 weeks, it sounds like you got an astounding amount done in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Boy, I'd like to sign up for 2 weeks and do it next summer.
Yeah.
It seems like everybody had a wonderful time and really learned a lot. Is there any questions from the committee? It looks like not. We appreciate you coming today, and
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate the academy and the students that attended. And I've known Rich for quite a number of years, and thank you for the work that you do. You've made a difference on many, many, many different projects, and it's appreciated.
Well, I thank you very much, Madam Chair, and also to all the staff at the City of Santa Fe Water that really made this possible. I think we've created a springboard that could, create a longer internship, work with more youth, do some work in the city around some of our infrastructure around stormwater and things like that. Because as Jesse Roach mentioned, we're getting bigger. Sometimes we're going to be getting these bigger rainstorms. So how do we actually try to adapt to that? so we don't send it off to Texas. No offense to anybody.
That's okay.
And thank you so much. We'd love to get a chance to keep spreading the word. So I will thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Now moving on to our consent agenda. We had 3 items pulled, all of them by Councilor Vigil Koppler, starting with item G. Councilor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question on items G and H are the same. And so I'll start with G. I just wanted to know why this isn't, and I don't see a history here of it having gone to, but I wondered why it wasn't scheduled and reviewed by Finance Committee.
Madam Chair, Councilor Vigil Koppler, thank you for the question. The biggest reason it wasn't sent to the Finance Committee is we had a limited time from the FAA to receive these grants. So therefore the city manager signed, and we have to put it on the very next council or governing body meeting. So in order for us to make the deadline for Public Works, it was already past the finance department. So if you'll notice, it is on discussion for tomorrow night. So that's why we went this route. So we went one committee, discussion for a governing body, and ratification for these 2 grants.
So how did the crunch in time happen? What was the cause of that?
So typically when the FAA sends out an award letter for the grants, they give a very limited timeline. And mostly it's just so they can get their balance sheets and their budget straightened out, especially coming up to the end of the year. Now that in October is the end of the federal fiscal year. So they wanted to get it out, get everything budgeted. So that's why we had such a limited time. Normally they'll give us anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks. This one was a 3-day turnaround.
Okay. So I'll move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call?
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Abeta,
Yes.
Councilor Vigil Koppler,
Yes.
and Madam Chair Lindell.
Yes.
Motion
Okay,
passes.
moving on. Thank you. Moving on to item H, Councilor Vigil Koppler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Baca, my question is the same, and I assume your answer is the same.
Madam Chair, Councilor Vigil Koppler, yes, ma'am. It's the same. We got these 2 grant offers on the same day within a couple hours. So that's the same reason that we brought this one as well for ratification after the city manager signed them. So we're all good. The FAA has us budgeted. We're going to get, this money as a reimbursement for the CARES Act. So we're all good as far as the FAA. Now we just getting the governing body to say, yes, we do want the money, after we went ahead and signed for it.
Okay, thank you. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Abeta,
Yes.
Councilor Vigil Koppler,
Yes.
and Madam Chair Lindell.
Yes. That
Motion
takes us,
passes.
thank you very much. That takes us to item K, request for approval of an agreement with Janes Corporation for the construction of the Southside Teen Center in the total amount of $9,267,000, including GRT. Mr. Burnett is here. Should we have specific questions of him? This was pulled by Councilor Vigil Koppler, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask, it does say in the memo that this committee, that the Finance Committee reviewed this on August 30th. but there's no fact sheet on that. And when you look at the agenda, it says it goes straight from Public Works to governing body without indicating that it went to finance. So I'm a little unclear as to whether this went to finance committee or not. It's a huge number.
Absolutely. Madam Chair, Councilor Vijo Koppler, this was originally scheduled to appear at Finance Committee last week. At the end of the week of the 23rd, I believe on Friday, the 27th, Jane's Corporation and our insurance company both asked to make some minor modifications to the agreement. And we spent last week working through those. The result of that was we separated the bar and the contract from each other, proceeded with the bar, and did not hear the contract portion at Finance Committee, but rather brought it to you tonight and then to governing body tomorrow night.
Madam Chair. You're on mute, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Councilor Abeyta.
Thank you. In fact, we did discuss this at Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee was concerned that the delay in the contract moving forward could potentially add to the cost. So the Finance Committee was okay with it proceeding without the contract being heard at the Finance Committee, because we were more concerned about the dollars, and we approved the bar and consented to the contract moving forward without having to go to Finance Committee. And that was unanimous by the Finance Committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Vijo Koppler, you do have the floor.
Thank you. Well, then what was the situation surrounding the increased cost?
Madam Chair, Councilor Vijo Koppler, right now, due to the incredible volatility in the construction market, it's hard for contractors to provide quotes that have the same shelf life that they had in the past, and allowing this to sit too long before approval runs us up against deadlines on that the contractor experiences with quotes that they've been provided by their material suppliers or subs. And in an effort to try and avoid unwanted changes to the cost, we're trying to move quickly to review and approve this contract. It's kind of particular to the current construction industry and market, and related to, again, COVID, which, yeah. But anyway, that's the logic.
So tell me again, what action did the Finance Committee take, and on what?
Madam Chair, Councilor Vijo Koppler, when I arrived last week, the contract and the bar were one item on the agenda, and the counselors at that time discussed the best path forward, and their recommendation was to split the bar and the contract into two separate items to allow the contract to proceed to Public Works tonight without requesting it return to the Finance Committee to be reviewed, and they voted directly on the bar. I have to admit, I am not an expert at Robert's rules, and there may be a nuance that I missed, but that's my understanding of the situation.
Well, the question then I have is, well, where's the BAR?
I believe, excuse me, Madam Chair, Councilor Vijo Koppler, the bar was item F on the agenda tonight.
So generally, when we approve these things, we put them together. So was there a reason for these to be separate?
Madam Chair, Councilor Vihil-Coppler, yes, because of the last minute change to the contract, it wasn't ready to be heard at the Finance Committee. And again, in a desire to keep both items moving through the approval process, the Finance Committee voted to separate the bar from the contract and allow them to proceed separately because the bar was ready to be voted on and discussed at Finance Committee. The committee members took the opportunity to do that and at the same time said, let's separate the bar, turn them into their own two separate items and keep them moving through the review process.
Is there some documentation here where the contractor attests to the increase in prices and all of that? Where would I find that?
There, Madam Chair, Councilor Vihil-Coppler, there is no warning or formal warning of changes in prices. It's just the reality on the ground these days, especially in like the steel industry and other material industries. It's hard for us to obtain quotes. Sometimes for metal, for example, we've gotten quotes where we're told they're only good for 72 hours, when in the past, quotes were generally good for 30 days. And that's a direct result primarily of COVID. There are other incidents like fires up in Pueblo that have affected metal prices and stuff, but just out of a general volatility in the construction industry, we're concerned internally about dragging this out too long and are trying to keep it moving as quickly as possible as a result of that.
Mr. Burnett, are we taking this same approach to, and I would say policy decision on other construction that we have moving forward? Skipping Finance Committee and moving forward because we have some trepidation about construction costs?
Madam Chair, Councilor Vihil-Coppler, to the best of my knowledge, I'm in my division. This is the only project at the moment that has a contract that's up for approval. So it's the only example I can think of. And I can't speak for anybody else in the city. It wouldn't surprise me, but I can't speak to that personally.
Okay, I just want to state that, this is a huge amount and it's a deviation from how we process our contracts. It's a deviation from how we conduct the study that we have historically practiced on the city council by going through committees. And I have to say, I'm not really liking it. So that's all the questions I have, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, you're on mute.
I don't see any other hands. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
We have a motion. I'll go ahead and second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilor Rivera?
Absent.
I'm sorry, Councilor Garcia.
Yeah.
Councilor Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Beta?
Yes.
Councilor Vihil-Coppler?
Yes.
And Madam Chair Lindell?
Yes. Thank you.
Motion passes.
Okay, those were all the items that were pulled. We have no need for an executive session. Are there any matters from staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I wanted to let the Public Works and Utilities Committee meeting know that we are closing in on having a ICIP list of projects to discuss with councilors. And so I'll be sending out a message to all the counselors asking to set up some meetings to review it and get your feedback on priorities. We're working with Jesse Guillen to start putting together the legislative priority list that'll include both regulatory priorities and policy priorities, as well as the capital priorities. And so I was just I'll be sending out an email and seeking meetings maybe a week from Friday so that we can review and get feedback on that list as we prepare for the session next year.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Matters from staff? Okay, matters from the committee.
Madam
Doesn't
Chair.
look like, Councilor Vehil-Coppler.
Thank you. I would like to ask Mr. Jones to just briefly go over what has happened at the wastewater treatment plant, the messages you recently sent out. Just give a synopsis of what happened there.
Madam Chair, Councilor Vehil-Coppler, thank you. Just trying to keep everybody apprised. I know we definitely know there's an impact when there's any delayed service for the treated effluent. So really the notice that went out was we are currently under construction. Over the past year, we've been working on our secondary treatment system. And so they've made some major milestones, one of which was refilling a basin that had been down. And because we're refilling the basin was going to limit the amount of treated effluent that was available. The reuse customers were notified that this was going to occur, and we worked with them to try to prepare, to give them enough notice and work with them to counteract any negative impact. My intent was just to notify the governing body, the administration, in case they received any questions. So that did occur. I did send out another notice today that basin was restored back into service, and I forwarded the notification to the reuse customers that was back in service. So everything went pretty well according to plan. So again, it was just off for about 24 hours while construction was being done, and service is back to normal now.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to just also say that I appreciated the notice that you gave and the fact that you let the effluent users know that this was going to happen, and that you followed up and stated that it was done and complete. And I just thought that was good. I just wanted you to say that. I just wanted you to go over what happened. Not that I thought it was a bad thing, but I always think it's good to know what happens in areas that we don't often see, but for which we and others depend on, things working smoothly. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Vehil-Coppler. I think that those were, that's very well said, and I appreciate you bringing that forward. Any other matters from the committee? Matters from the chair? I have none, and I'm really not the chair, only for tonight. But I will see all of you at the next meeting on Monday, September 27th. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you for bearing with me. It's been a while since I chaired a meeting, but we got through it.
You did well.
Thanks. So long, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Madam Chair.